Welcome to Mr. Hutchings History, where the past comes alive. Let's dive into today's story.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are going way back to 1963.
Oh, 1963.
To look at a moment that changed America.
A pivotal moment for sure.
The Birmingham Campaign. And for this deep dive, we are using a podcast episode called The Results and Significance of 1963 Birmingham, a Turning Point in Civil Rights. It's episode 44.
I like it.
From Mr. Hutchings History. And today we really want to understand the WHY of Birmingham.
Yeah.
Like, why was this campaign so important, and what can it teach us about social change even today?
You know, when you really dig into Birmingham, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like they were playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers.
Okay, I love that. What do you mean?
Well, Martin Luther King Jr. and the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference,
Right.
they didn't just randomly choose Birmingham for their campaign.
Mm-hmm.
They picked it strategically
Interesting.
because of its deeply entrenched segregation.
Wow.
And honestly, because of Bull Connor.
Oh, yeah, Bull Connor?
The public safety commissioner.
It was infamous.
Oh, yeah, they knew he was volatile.
Wow, so they were walking into a powder keg on purpose.
Basically. And it was a controversial move, even within the movement.
I bet.
Some people thought it was way too risky,
Yeah.
but King was convinced that they could use the violence
Oh, wow.
that they knew Connor would unleash
Right.
to expose the horrors of segregation to the whole world.
So you're imagining like a family back then sitting down to watch the evening news.
Exactly.
And suddenly they're seeing these images.
This is images, yeah.
The police, dogs, the fire hoses.
It's hard to believe that this was happening just a few decades ago.
You know, it's really powerful and disturbing.
And that was exactly what King wanted.
Yeah.
He knew the power of those visuals.
The media was definitely there.
Absolutely. There's a quote from an SCLC staffer
Okay.
that really sums it up. They said, "There never was any more skillful manipulation of the news media than there was in Birmingham."
Wow, manipulation.
That's a strong word.
But I see what they mean. Those images are so powerful.
More powerful than words, for sure.
You can feel the fear just looking at them.
Definitely. But those images are also where the debate about King's tactics comes in.
Yeah, some people saw it as hypocritical.
Right, accusing him of orchestrating the events knowing that violence would happen.
Which seems to contradict the whole idea of nonviolent resistance.
Exactly. So how do you reconcile those two things?
That's a tough question. What does the podcast episode say about that?
Well, it points out that King defended his actions by saying he wasn't creating violence.
Okay.
He was just revealing the violence that already existed within the system.
Birmingham was already a powder keg.
Right. He just lit the fuse.
Wow, I'm really starting to understand why Birmingham was so important.
Right.
It wasn't just about what happened there. It was about the national conversation it started.
Exactly. Everyone had to confront this reality.
Exactly. And it wasn't just talk. It spurred protests across the South.
Oh, yeah. And it showed how effective organized nonviolent resistance could be.
And it was organized, right? This wasn't just random people showing up.
Not at all.
Yeah.
There was training, careful planning, incredible discipline from the protesters.
So almost like a crash course in nonviolent resistance for the whole nation.
Yeah, you could say that, and it had a profound impact on President Kennedy.
This was just a year before the Civil Rights Act was passed.
Exactly.
His speech about civil rights being a moral issue, and then that landmark legislation.
Powerful stuff.
It's amazing to think that Birmingham had that kind of influence.
Those images, I mean, how could anyone ignore them?
And King knew it. He said, "We are on the threshold of a significant breakthrough, and the greatest weapon is the mass demonstration."
And he was right. But even within those mass demonstrations, there were tough choices.
Like what?
Like involving children in the protests. Even Malcolm X criticized King for that.
Wow, so even within the civil rights movement, there were disagreements.
Oh, absolutely. There were many different viewpoints and approaches.
Wow.
King saw those children as a powerful moral statement,
Yeah.
a way to show how urgent the situation was.
But it's still debated today.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
This is getting complex. I knew this campaign was important,
It is.
but I didn't realize there were so many layers.
There are. And it's fascinating how historians have viewed its significance over the years.
Really?
Yeah, the episode talks about 4 main schools of thought.
Ooh, lay it on me. I love a good historical debate.
All right, so you've got the traditionalists.
Okay.
They see King as this brilliant strategist who forced the government to act.
It's interesting.
Then you have the radicals who focus on how calculated his tactics were, even provocative.
Okay, so two very different views of the same person.
Right. And then there's the continuity perspective,
Okay.
which sees Birmingham as a natural step building on previous campaigns.
Right.
And then finally, the social historians.
Okay.
They emphasize the everyday people on the ground.
The local Black community?
Yes, especially them and those incredibly brave children.
So it's not just about the big name.
Not at all. It's about the collective effort of everyone.
And that effort had a huge impact.
Huge, yeah.
You can't talk about the Civil Rights Act without talking about Birmingham.
Those images from Birmingham are seared into our collective memory.
Yeah.
They forced America to look at its own hypocrisy.
And that paved the way for change.
Exactly. But it wasn't just about legislation. It was about changing society itself. And
that's where we'll pick up next time on the deep dive. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. We're back. And before the break, we were talking about Birmingham's impact.
its legacy. Yeah.
It wasn't just about changing the laws, was it?
Oh, no, not at all. Birmingham had this ripple effect that went way beyond that.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, think of it as a blueprint for social change, you know?
Okay.
It showed how to challenge these really deep systems of oppression. And activists are still using that blueprint today.
That's what's so amazing about history, isn't it?
It is.
It's not just stuff in textbooks, it shapes who we are today.
Definitely.
But how does something that happened over 60 years ago still matter today?
Think about the core elements of Birmingham, you know?
Okay.
They had nonviolent action, but it was strategic.
Right.
They knew how to use the media, and their message resonated with people.
It was a moral message.
Exactly. And those principles are still relevant today.
But the world is totally different now, right?
That is
We've
true.
got social media, 24/7 news. Everyone has a camera.
You're right. So how do those lessons from Birmingham apply now?
That's a good question.
The media landscape is completely different, and it's easy to get lost in the noise.
It really is.
Back then, those images of police brutality were shocking. You couldn't miss them.
Everyone saw them.
Now we're just bombarded with information all the time, and it's easy to become numb to it.
So how do we break through the clutter?
Yeah, how do we create those moments that grab people's attention and make them want to act?
Especially in this hyper-connected world we live in.
And that's where that strategic thinking from Birmingham is so important.
Okay, I see that.
They didn't just react, they planned, they organized.
They knew how to spread their message.
Exactly. And even though our tools are different, those core principles are the same.
So instead of marches and sit-ins, we have online campaigns and viral hashtags.
Right. It's all about narratives.
Okay.
And using social media to amplify voices that haven't been heard.
And building coalitions across different groups.
That's a big one. The civil rights movement was so powerful because it brought people together.
People from all walks of life.
Exactly. And that's something we need to do today, too.
Build bridges, find common ground.
We need to learn from the past, especially now when it feels like we're so divided.
We are.
Birmingham shows us that social change has to be multifaceted.
Okay.
It's not just about protesting. It's about engaging with institutions, with policymakers, with the media.
With everyday people.
Exactly. It's about changing hearts and minds.
As much as it's about changing laws.
And it's about having the courage to face those uncomfortable truths.
What do you mean?
Well, think about what Birmingham did at. It made America look at itself and acknowledge that racism was built into our society.
It was a wake-up call for sure.
It was. And that confrontation, as painful as it was totally necessary for progress.
Real change is hard.
It requires us to push ourselves to challenge the status quo.
To demand better.
Exactly. For ourselves and for everyone else.
It's about not settling for the way things are, but imagining how they could be.
And that's why it's so important to learn from those who came before us.
Their legacy.
Exactly. They weren't perfect. They made mistakes.
But they believed in justice.
Absolutely. And they accomplished incredible things.
It's easy to think, oh, that was a different time. Things are more complicated now.
It's tempting to think that.
But Birmingham proves that change is possible.
Even when things seem impossible.
It's a testament to people working together.
It is to having a clear moral vision.
And to believing that a better world is out there.
Yeah, you know, it's almost like those relay races.
Oh, I like that.
Where each runner passes the baton.
Birmingham was like a crucial moment in the relay race of social justice.
That's a great way to put it.
They ran their part of the race with courage and determination.
And then they passed the baton to the next generation.
And now it's our turn.
It is, and we're not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
We have this incredible history to learn from.
So many examples of courage and resilience.
Birmingham also raises some tough questions.
Like what?
Well, if King and the SCLC were around today, you know.
In our world of social media and everything.
How would they do things?
What would their Birmingham look like in 2024?
That's the question, isn't it?
Would they still be able to use images in the same way?
Would those images even stand out anymore?
It's like we're desensitized to it all.
We are. So how do we make sure that those stories of injustice don't get lost?
It's how do we make sure they don't just fade away?
It's a real challenge, but I think it goes back to those core principles.
Strategic thinking, building coalitions, those powerful narratives.
Exactly. Maybe it's about finding new ways to connect.
To tell those stories in a way that really hits home.
And to build bridges between people.
Maybe it's about using technology to amplify those voices that are being ignored.
Giving them a platform.
Where those stories can't be silenced.
Or maybe it's about remembering those core lessons from Birmingham.
Confronting injustice, being strategic, believing that change is possible.
Those lessons are timeless.
They give us hope, not just for social movements, but for all of us who want to make the world a better place.
This deep dive has been so insightful.
It really has. What stands out to you the most about Birmingham's legacy?
I think it's the reminder that progress isn't linear.
What do you mean?
It's not a straight line. There will be setbacks and controversies.
People will disagree about the best way to do things.
But the most important thing is to never give up on justice.
Never stop fighting.
Birmingham teaches us that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can win.
It shows us that ordinary people can do extraordinary things.
When they come together for a common purpose.
And that's a powerful message for anyone who's feeling overwhelmed by today's challenges.
Birmingham wasn't a fairy tale. It was a battle.
There were setbacks and disagreements.
And moments of despair, but in the end, the human spirit prevailed.
It's a story about hope and courage.
And the power of people to overcome anything.
Beautifully said. It's amazing how one event can have such a huge impact.
It is.
And it's our responsibility to keep carrying that torch forward.
Yeah.
Makes you think, right? What would a modern-day Birmingham even look like?
It's a question I keep coming back to.
Me too, and I think it's the perfect question for our listeners. You know, if MLK and the SCLC were strategizing today in our world of TikTok and Twitter and all that, how would they get our attention?
The tough one.
What would be their viral moment?
Right. We're so overloaded with information these days, it's hard to cut through all that.
I know. It makes you really appreciate how smart they were back then.
Yeah.
They understood how to use the media so effectively.
They did, and that's the lesson we need to remember today.
Yeah.
We need to understand how to use the tools WE have to get those messages of justice and equality out there.
So what does that even look like?
Right. Is it memes? Is it hashtags? Or is it something bigger?
Deeper, yeah.
I think it comes down to those same principles that drove Birmingham.
Strategic thinking, building coalitions.
Yes, and telling those stories in a way that really moves people.
Finding those human stories, the moments of injustice.
And presenting them in a way that resonates on a gut level.
So it's not just about being online.
Right.
It's about organizing and actually taking action.
It's about turning those online conversations into real-world change.
Exactly. Birmingham shows us that real change takes more than just one approach.
It does. It's about changing laws, but it's also about changing people's hearts and minds.
And it's a long game, right? This isn't a quick fix.
Definitely, the fight for justice is a marathon, not a sprint.
We can't get complacent.
No. Birmingham was a turning point, but it wasn't the end.
Right. The struggle continues.
And we have to keep pushing forward.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we leave you with this.
Okay.
What will your Birmingham look like? How will you use your voice and your actions to make a difference?
It's something we all need to think about.
It is. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep fighting for a better world.
Thanks for listening to Mr. Hutchings History. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.